This is for the employees to actually do the work.
Okay, so we'd be paying for the work, but not for any actual product.
Well, you'd pay, again, all the social marketing, we would do all of the programming piece, so do all of that work. But then say we decide to do a direct, or we decide to do a tourism video. We would come to you and say, okay, this is the proposal for this video. We would do the video work.
But again, we pay $75,000 for you to develop the proposal, not for the actual proposal itself. Not for the work, the videography. all that.
The footage, who's paying for the production?
Yeah, so we would pay with that additional, we would pay for the production work once we've come in and
But
approached.
75,000 is paying for the planning, not for the actual production, correct?
Correct, and all the work that comes with it. Okay, what
So,
else?
may I?
Are there other questions?
Yes.
Mayor
First of all,
Bialis.
I want to thank you, Victoria and Shatrine, for all your work on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. I think it's important to the city that we have a vital, or it's vital to the city to have an active Chamber of Commerce, just like it's vital to the city to have an active Main Street group. And so what my understanding from this proposal is you're requesting $75,000 and you would kind of come with whatever we're able to give. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to give a full amount to that, just given the city's budget. But if we outprogram some funding into the budget, the chamber would come back at some point with some sort of contract where the obligations are set out, how that money would be spent. So it's not like we would be giving the money and it would go over right away. It would be like,
No.
we would work together to figure out how this pilot program would work, kind of based on this document. Is that correct? Is that?
Yes, we would submit an MOU so that way you can have all the details of what it is and what it isn't. And then we can go through the details of, do you need an additional this or whatever, that kind of thing. So,
Thank you. I just wanted the clarification.
Yes,
for
absolutely.
that. And I will yield the floor back.
Yes, Abby?
I'm just trying to make clear, the $75,000 is paying for their staff time, not any final product like a video, a project, anything else.
it would support all of, like I say, we're going to help you with spreading the word for everything. If there's mailers, things like that, we're going to pay for those things. But if we're also going to do like the social media, that takes a lot of time. So that kind of marketing for the city, and again, doing things like roundtables with the community and such like that, that's what that would pay for.
Okay, it's just not clear from the proposal that it's at that, and John, I see you have the proposal that it's paying for any kind of product. I'm just saying what I read. John, could I possibly borrow a copy of that?
But yes, I have that.
If you
Yes.
have it there.
Yes.
Are there other questions from the committee? Nope. Okay. Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And then we do have an additional letter of support that Taylor was supposed to be able to come in this evening and her shop got busy. So that's a great thing. So I'll forward that as well.
Dylan, do we have other comments?
No further comment.
No other comments. Okay. So we will move on to the budget presentations. And at this time, we're going to do a continuation from our last meeting. And I think we were going to discuss the non-departmental areas of the budget. Mr. Williams?
Sure, and Lauren and I are happy to, well, I guess I'll provide just a brief, cue the hard music where we were. At the end of the last meeting, we had been talking about the non-departmental items and requests such as the one you had from Main Street, such as the one you just heard from the Chamber of Commerce. Rather than dive into those at late Tuesday night, you agreed to carry that over till today. After that, this afternoon, and I apologize it didn't come sooner, but I tried to send out, well, I did send out some information that hopefully just provided a little context on each of the items that are not obviously clear from the non-departmental program list. And rather than dive through all of those again, I guess I think Lauren and I would be happy to support your conversation. Unless you want me to go down this list again, like I did on Tuesday night.
Okay, so is everybody clear on what the non-departmental budgets are for? Or are there questions for the city manager or the finance director on any of those specific line items? Mr. Groner, Counselor Groner?
Yes, could we get some clarification on other insurance claims? Is that over and above insurance premiums or where does that fit in?
So that's our liability insurance and any claims that we have to pay out that are over and above what the insurance pays.
Thank you.
And that is in other departments too. Part of other departments pay part of the premium in addition to that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and then, yes, Ms. Fraser.
I just want to confirm that under miscellaneous, that the survey that you're proposing was actually a $25,000 survey, is that correct?
We had a $21,000 quote. I included that in email this afternoon, so I went back and found the exact number, which I didn't have on hand Tuesday night. So yes, that is included in that first year FY 26 of miscellaneous right now in the budget.
And what we're looking at is the request from Main Street being 70,000 each year, and the request from the Chamber of Commerce being 75,000 each year.
Yes, that's what we heard in the testimony, and the Main Street budget, or the Main Street included in the budget right now is 40 a year. So essentially what we've heard is requests for 105 addition per year.
Pardon me, will you please, I didn't catch what you said.
Yeah, so the Main Street group has testified to a request of 70,000 a year to budget. We're looking at on page 76 and 77,
Right.
it's 40 for that. And there's nothing for the change, so.
So for with the Main Street, they're requesting 140 instead of 80
Yes, that's right.
over the biennium.
And we do switch back and forth
Right.
between talking about per year and then the biennium, so.
Okay.
I will try to be clear on that.
So what we're discussing is the request from the Main Street at 70,000 per year instead of the 40,000 per year. So that we know we're all discussing the same thing. Is there further discussion? Yes, Abby, Ms. Farber.
So just to make clear that if we want to take it up to 75, and I'm not saying that I'm against it, but that it's for them to be able to fund their executive director, that if we take it up to 75, that
It's 70.
70, I'm sorry, 70-year finance person, bad with math, that if we take it up to 70 each year, ideally, we'd have to take something from somewhere else if we want to end up with a balanced budget. Is that correct, Lauren?
Ideally, I would love it if we would take it from somewhere else. We will have a balanced budget one way or another. If we
Yep.
increase that, we have money in our reserves for this biennium.
Right.
We're looking at a pretty significant deficit for next biennium. And so we could, but I would rather we
Right.
take it from somewhere else so that we're not putting ourselves more in a hole for next
Right.
biennium.
And what, just so we all know, what is our deficit for the next biennium?
In the
Lay
general,
it-
in the general fund, we're looking at about 9 million under reserved.
9 million. I just want all of that to sink in to all of us and understand that it's not insignificant, as they say.
So, and with that, and John says this in his budget message, and we say this quite a few times in different ways. We usually do see a pretty significant swing from that, and we usually end up okay. However, in the past, our deficits haven't been that large. They've been somewhere in the $2 to $3 million range. So this is the largest one that we've ever been looking at for next biennium. So when we're budgeting fairly conservatively on expenditures and revenues. And so it would be 9 million if we spent every one of our budgets and our revenues came in at the level that they're in this budget, which is unlikely. So I do expect that to swing. I don't expect it to swing 9 million, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brightopt. Is there further discussion? Ms. Fraser.
At the last meeting, I made a request of Lauren to see if she could come up with some places in the general budget which could be reduced a little bit so that we could increase the budget to Main Street. I wonder if you have any comments to make about that.
Yeah, so we looked at a bunch of different areas and I know you sent me an email, Anne, with some areas that we could potentially reduce in professional and technical services. Some of those professional and technical services line items are contracted items that we're going to have to pay. So for example, one of them was parks, and we have two. One of that is our staffing agency for the summer seasonal hires, and the other is our arborist. So there's no wiggle room in that necessarily. Same thing with like the finance department. We have certain compliance things that we have to do, certain reports, bond counsel, things like that, that are included in that line item. So it wouldn't really be feasible necessarily to take it from some of those. I think there's a couple departments that we could maybe take a little bit from. Our HR director said maybe a little bit from their fund. IT, I would be a little bit nervous that we'd still end up spending money and have to come back for supplementals, if that makes sense. So the other areas that we talked about being able to take it from is another area in non-departmental. A lot of these are discretionary costs. And so, you know, funding these items at a different level might be an appropriate thing to do.
Thank you. Council President Baumgartner.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, thanks everyone for the thoughtful discussion. Having participated in quite a few neighboring cities chamber events, I recognize that while our chamber hasn't lately maybe been as robust, and I think this merits support as well as Main Street. And I feel like the amounts of money that's being requested are relative to, I respect this $9 million proposed deficit number. I'm not saying I don't respect and acknowledge that, but we're not talking about, you know, a large sum of money here that would make a huge difference for these groups that I mean, a lot of what they do is volunteer hours. I mean, there's so much volunteer time, and asking them to just keep doing it without supporting them doesn't make sense to me. So I would like to be able to somehow find a way to support them. And I'm happy to creatively, you know, talk about where that would come from. I do also think businesses hopefully could benefit from contributing to these as well. And so I hope that businesses see that they have a role to play here, and that would also add to, you know, maybe a match sort of a thing, that if businesses hear that the city is contributing, they could contribute also, because it's to benefit all of us, the whole community, that the Main Street and Chamber are functioning at, you know, exceeding levels, not just adequate or barely making it levels. So
Thank you very much.
that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councillor Brake.
So I do recognize that there's not that much discretionary spending in this budget, nor was there in the last budget. Many of the things are things that we have to pay for no matter what. We have to have electricity in the building, you know, we have to provide all of those services. So, and I agree with Mary Baumgartner that we need to partner with the businesses so that they've also got more skin in the game, perhaps. But I could see looking at a portion of what is being asked for.
Okay. Are there further comments? Ms. Farber.
And please feel free to tell me to stop talking so much if I'm keeping somebody else from talking or from business proceeding. I'd be really interested, and there hasn't been time because of the timing of the submission of the proposal, to look and see what other cities are doing in terms of supporting their Chamber of Commerce's. Are they funding their Chamber of Commerce's, and to what extent, especially in these difficult budget years? I was under the impression that perhaps business dues were paying for CFCs. And again, in a tight budget year where a lot of things in our city are not getting funded. And we have very lean staff. We all know that. Does it make sense to come to the city's coffers to ask for this when we're doing some things with business groups and other things through other groups? I have no animosity towards the Chamber of Commerce, just a question, is this the right group to be funding now when there are other organizations with their hands open and other needs of the city itself?
Okay. Further discussion? Mayor Bielostowski?
Thank you. I tend to agree with Council President's points and Council Bragg's points and respect Committee Member Farber's points as well. I don't have data on how other cities fund their chambers. But I also am interested in supporting the chamber as much as we can, and the Willamette Main Street group as well. We're elected to be here and do the best we can for the city and support our city organizations that are important. And so I think it's important to do that, but I am trying to figure out how to get a certain amount of money. For example, I was thinking giving the 30,000 each year to the Main Street group and then 30,000 a year to the chamber, but then where does that money come from? I don't feel like I'm an expert to say exactly where to shift the money from, or if we can even do that. But I am interested in trying to find a solution to the issues, just because I think these are two important organizations. And yes, the chamber hasn't been as active as we'd hope, and they've done the best they can with the limited resources they have. And so it's kind of like giving some seed money in a way. And so anyway, I could ramble on, but that's where I'm at. I just want to be as supportive as possible. But
Thank you. Councillor Bonington?
What would it look like if we imposed a reduction of a certain percent on materials and services across every department to do this? Would it look like 0.023% or something like that? What would it have to look like? And is that too painful to consider?
Councilor, it varies by department, and I sympathize with you sitting here trying to figure this out. You had 5 to 7 minute presentations from rapid fire departments. You didn't have the opportunity to ask each of them what exactly makes up your materials and services budget, right? Lauren and I did that work 4 or 5 months ago, talking to each department. And it's my impression that most of the materials and services budgets are a compilation of things we're already doing, and the costs are carried into the next year. There's especially in the smaller departments, and Lauren can give you some examples, or we can pull some folks up. Some of the departments' materials and services budgets are really like, finance is a great example, right? These are things we've been doing over the last couple of years, and we know the contract costs, and we think we probably need to do them again. For example, in Lauren's materials and services budget is getting the advice of bond counsel or financial advisors when we're putting together a bond. If we're putting together a bond, we have to do that. If we're not putting together a bond or a financial measure, we won't have to do them. But it's money that we have used in the past to do that analysis. It's one of the areas that I suggested last time was that Polco survey. That's totally doable, I think. The planning department is one that I had mentioned as well. I think the planning department budget, and I know there's planning staff watching this probably, and they're gonna throw a rock at me virtually or tomorrow, actually. We had proposed funding in that department that would allow us to do projects and programs to implement the waterfront and the Vision 43. It's an area that probably you could take some from, with just the expectation that we would do a little bit less of that. And there's some nexus to it in a way. If you're looking at the Chamber and Main Street, these are organizations that are going to be working in the sphere of economic development in different ways. But that's a place that perhaps some of this could come from. So I think with a little bit from a couple of different departments and a bigger chunk maybe from the planning department, and you get rid of the Polco survey, you're probably getting pretty close in the ballpark of what you're looking for. But I haven't heard the committee come to agreement on a specific number yet either. Is that a helpful start? I
Yes.
think the across the board, I don't know if we have a total of materials and services that we've been able to add up. Yeah, I didn't do that this afternoon. Yeah,
For all the materials and services, that includes everything though.
so it's a pretty small percentage, as you said.
You know, just looking through the areas that, you know, like John's mentioned, so cutting the Polco, that was 25 in the first year. Maybe 5K in HR each year, 15 maybe each year in IT, and then 5 in city manager, and then whatever out of planning. So that would get us to 25 plus whatever's in planning, and then plus 25 in the first year for the Polco survey.
And that's to get to what number, Ms. Bright Hooked? Is that to get to 135?
Well,
That's
it would get us to, well, it depends on how much we take out of the planning. So it depends on how much you want to, do
Okay.
we want the 135 or do we want less or?
So that's where I want to kind of pull the committee. The request is for 60,000 over the 2 years for the Main Street and then 75 for the chamber. To add the two together is 135,000 over the biennium. And so I just kind of want to pull the committee.
And for the Main Street.
Yeah, but they want another space.
I guess, but they want 30 more each year. So that's 60,000. And then if you add 75 for the chamber, that adds up to 135. So I'd just like to pull on the Main Street is the 60,000 is their support for the full 60,000.
30, you're saying the 30,000 per year.
30,000 per year, 60,000 over the biennium.
Point of clarity for the chamber, it's 75 for 1 year, not 2.
Yes, I understand. So 60 and 75
Okay,
is
good.
135.
Okay, it's not a 2-year and doesn't include anything additional they'd charge us for
Right.
output.
Yeah, those,
75.
so
each year.
150 total, I think, for the biennium.
It's my understanding that the chamber's request is 75,000 per year.
Per year.
Per year.
Well, I didn't read it that way either. It's-
Okay, see, that's not what,
The second line, proposal requests $75,000 annually. Right at the
75
top of the letter.
okay.
75,000 annually, you're absolutely correct.
So if you
210.
take both of those together, then you're up to 210,000. Ms. Fraser?
I'd like to support us giving 30,000 extra a year to the Main Street. And I'm not sure I quite understand from Lauren and John whether they can come up with that out of the existing budget or whether some of it would need to come out of reserves. I think we should give some money to the Chamber of Commerce to see how they're doing. I understand that they're not asking us to give the money directly, but they're going to give us a project to fund out of that money. Am I correct about that? No. No? Okay.
It's my understanding they want the money for planning for that project. Some money might be used for gathering focus groups, but I will read to you what they say, just so it's clear. The requested budget is focused on year-round communication and engagement with businesses, residents, and city departments, staff time to implement the approved work plan and tools to execute outreach, tourism promotion, and partnership coordination. This does not include funding for one-time productions, e.g. videos, directories, or special initiatives, which will be proposed separately to allow for clear financial oversight and strategic alignment. And there is no line item budget included with this, which gives me a little pause.
So
Thank you. Hadn't quite finished, but I'm happy to continue. No, that's fine. I think that we should try to fund the Chamber of Commerce to some extent. Maybe not entirely 75, maybe something smaller. I also think that if we cannot find it out of the biennial budget, we should take the balance out of the reserves. Thank you.
So, Councilor Bright, do you have a comment?
I just think we can maybe kind of split it up. I would be fully supportive of giving Main Street the same that we did in the last biennium, 60,000 in the first year, 40 in the second. And hopefully that will give them enough to be able to start getting donations from businesses. And then some number for the chamber, but probably not the 75,000 per year.
So to be clear, that would be 20 extra in the first year for Main Street. And then whatever amount for the chamber for the 2 years.
Right, whatever other people can agree to.
So if we go back to the areas that we said we could cut, we have 5,000 a year for HR, 15 a year for IT, and 5,000 a year for the city manager department. So that's 25 a year. And then potentially the Polco survey for 25 in the first year, which would get us to 75,000 total over the biennium. Then the other part can come from the planning department.
Planning department and reserves.
Okay. My opinion is I would like to see us leave the polling in the budget. I think it's valuable. I think it's a good check on how the city is doing and how the citizens and the people view their city. I think that's a valuable thing to do. And I would personally hate to see that taken out of the budget. And with the chamber, unfortunately, it's very unclear what this money is going to be spent on. They did not provide a numerical budget, any kind of a line item budget. The proposal came in very late. I mean, I'll go along with the committee, of course, but it would not be my priority to fund the chamber. So I don't know if there's other comments or if somebody would like to make a motion maybe on starting with the Main Street and then see if we have a motion on the chamber.
I'd like to, maybe we could, if I may.
Please.
Could we kind of take the pulse of the committee on the amount for Main Street first, and then we'll talk about what the amount for the chamber? And then, because I think there's a little bit of a maybe disagreement about whether we fund Main Street at the 30,000 request or the 60 and 40,000. So it would be helpful to take the pulse of the committee just so we can know how much we're trying to pull from other areas of the budget. So I'm okay with fully funding the Main Street request up 30,000 each year.
Okay, others?
I would be okay with that. I was just trying to find a little bit of a compromise.
Absolutely in favor of funding Willamette Main Street, and really just appreciate everything they have brought to the city in recent years. It's very valuable to us, and I can't imagine not approving this. With the chamber, I guess I'd be comfortable with more like 30,000 per year.
Committee member Beadle?
I agree with you on the actual Main Street. I think we should, I'm on the same page with everybody else on that. I think we talked through that as well. On the Chamber of Commerce, I appreciate everything they do for our community. I think it's important that they bring tourism, they bring in, what they bring into our community. And with that said, I was a little disappointed in regards to the level of detail. I feel like we're funding overhead is what it is what we're doing without really an action plan, you know, and how that money is going to be used. So I know that's going to come out of the investment, but it's a hard pill for me to swallow. But I'm open to further discussions on that.
Ms. Farber?
First on the chamber, I'd like to encourage them to have a better relationship with us, you know, talk about their structure. We can talk to them too. I have nothing against them, and I think Chamber of Commerce's are great. And that we could, we being the city, you know, I'm not pretending I'm a member of city council, but, you know, let's find out and let them also work with businesses as well. And then perhaps come back to us at, you know, I'm not familiar enough with the budget process that they could come back with us and talk with us about what kind of assurance we want from them and what we're comfortable funding. So we're not slamming the door. I'm saying not right now, but, leaving the door open. I am in favor of fully funding historic Willamette Main Street. I went to their website yesterday to really understand what the structure was. I know at the other meeting, I was like, why are there 3 of them? And now I get it. They make it very clear in their website. So I am in favor of fully funding. They need an executive director who's paid. So there I go.
Counselor
Just
Baumgartner.
point of clarification, are you wanting us to talk about Main Street and
Yes.
not, okay, just
Yeah.
Main Street? Thank you.
Ms. Colby?
Yeah, I thought we were doing Main Street as well. So if we just start there, I'm supportive of adding for the full 70, so the 30 in each year.
Thank you. Counselor Groner?
Yeah, I agree. I think we're paying for excellent performance on the part of Main Street,
Okay.
and I want to continue that.
So I think Counselor Baumgartner.
Fully fund Main Street.
So is there some, Mr. Williams, I'm sorry.
Okay, so now that you've gone around the table, I have 30,000 a year for you. That is, hold on, but they just added 30. So I'm saying do 30 by reducing materials and services, 5 in HR, 15 a year, 5 a year in HR, 15 a year in IT, 5 a year in city manager, and 5 a year in planning. Makes $30,000 a year.
May I ask a
So just
follow-up?
starting with what you just did, that's how we could do that. And then we have a couple of other ideas if you need to find them.
Mayor Bielostowski?
Thank you. Could you just explain a little bit on what those reductions would mean for those different departments? Like, I just don't want to cut an essential service when we have money in reserve.
I would need to look at Alyssa and Warren on part of it, but essentially what you would be doing, HR, materials and services, covers employee engagement types of things. It covers investigations that needed. Those are the 2 main things that it does. So
Here's-
just as an example, right?
I appreciate that. Here's where I'm at. I'm just gonna be honest with everybody. Our city has a budget problem in the out years of $9 million. These 2 requests of 30,000 or, for 30,000, is there 30,000 for Main Street. And maybe we could fund 30,000 for chamber, some amount with further clarification going on in a contract about what it would mean. And these aren't going to make or break the budget. We have to have a conversation with the community going forward about how to address this huge shortfall that we have. And I don't think that we want to be as conservative as we can, tapping from reserves if we have to. I don't think that it's going to make or break like the city's overall financial picture. We got to really have those community conversations about going forward, like how we're going to raise revenue to make up the deficit. So on a broader scale than $60,000. So that's where my heart's at right now, because we do have a problem going forward in 2 to 4 years.
Indeed. Counselor Bragg?
I agree, this amount, while we're sitting here saying, where are we going to get it from? It's really small in comparison to the whole budget, and it's also not going to dramatically swing the shortfall in the out years.
So do I hear a motion on the grant to Main Street?
So moved.
So can you please summarize your motion, Counselor Groner?
I approve an increase of 30,000 per year for the historic Main Street.
And taking the revenue from, the expenditures from where City Manager Williams proposed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Seconded? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to increase the funding for the historic Main Street by 30,000 per year and reducing expenditures in the plan that the city manager proposed, which I can't recite off the top of my head.
Well, I can recite it off the top of my head, but where I thought I heard 2 of the members of the committee going was not to take it from individual departments, but to take it from reserves, but maybe I misunderstood.
Well, the motion was to take it from your plan.
That would be my preference, to take it from reserves if over taking it from the budgets. So I know that's the motion on the table, and I would prefer the other option.
Counselor Groner, would you like to amend your motion?
All right, I will amend my motion by changing the source of funding to,
Can you withdraw your motion?
I withdraw my.
Okay,
Who
good.
seconded
That's
the
even
motion?
better.
Whoever seconded, can you withdraw your second?
I withdraw my second.
Okay. Could you make a new motion from reserves, the 30,000 from reserves?
Thank you,
All right.
Mayor.
So 60
For the-
60,000
For the biennium, yeah. So I move that we give 30,000 a year to historic Main Street. And that funds be taken from the reserves.
Okay,
I second that motion.
it's moved and seconded to add 30,000 per year to historic Main Street and reduce reserves in the general fund. And we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
I'd like to make one comment. I'm sorry.
Yes, Mayor
I'm sorry to-
Bielostowski?
I just want to say, I do think that the business community in Main Street needs to step up. There are a lot of folks I know down there who, landholders and things like that, who could contribute. And I just want to encourage the group. I read your sponsorship proposal for like $1,000 is the most expensive sponsorship. Go bigger, because there are some folks who could do that. And even if they're not even directly related to the Main Street area, people who value Westland and other organizations who could afford that. So I'm hopeful that, and I'm happy to sit in some of those meetings and help out with the initial fundraising of prouder than $1,000 each. So anyway, thanks. I think,
Mayor,
so.
is there further discussion? Ms. Brighthawk, would you like to call the roll, please?
Nikki Kolblaha,
Yes.
Leo Groner,
Yes.
Mary Baumgartner,
Yes.
Rory Bielostowski.
Yes.
Ann Fraser,
Yes.
Carol Bright,
Yes.
Richard Larson.
Yes.
Kevin Bonington,
Yes.
Brian Beadle,
Yes.
Abby Farber.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Now, is there discussion about the Chamber of Commerce? Counselor Groner?
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering if there's some way we can begin the relationship with them, perhaps through an MOU for specific performance for some tasks without necessarily breaking into our reserves for a large amount.
Mayor Bielostowski?
Oh, I think this is the type of request where maybe there could be further conversations even over the course of the rest of the budget season with the chamber about getting some specifics. It sounds like there's some concerns from the committee about what the specific money would go towards. And so if committee members are concerned about that, there could be further conversations over the next month before it goes to city council. So we have some assurances about what money could be used for. I don't know.
Ms. Fraser?
But I'm also happy to find some money for the chamber as well if the committee wants to. I think it's an important group.
In terms of process, we have to recommend a budget, a specific budget to city council for their approval. And if we're going to push out the discussion for several more weeks, that's going to undercut this process. So I don't think that we should, I personally don't think we should do that.
Counselor Bright?
I think what we can do is come up with an agreement on an amount that we would budget, but that doesn't mean that on July 1st, finance cuts a check for that amount. So we come up with a maximum budget and then have further conversations with the Chamber of Commerce to get more clarity as to what the amounts that are budgeted are going to fund.
Yes, Ms. Farber?
I disagree with that entirely. I don't believe in earmarking money where we've already gone into the reserve. We have plenty to discuss as it is right here. And it doesn't seem to me to be a good use of our time or finances when we really, it would be like saying, let's talk to some other contractor. We have no idea what they're going to do, but let's set aside some money because we think they might do a good thing. As far as I'm concerned, the chamber, although worthy of thought and intention, doesn't have the same kind of track record as the other organizations we are talking with. The only thing I can see is that they got their proposal to us late and it's not specific. And again, I say that the council and the city staff should remain open to their proposals, nurture them, get them the help with economic, we have an economic development department, I believe, that, they can also work with, but not earmark money directly for them out of this existing budget.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Ms. Koblaha?
I guess I like the idea again of supporting the chamber. Maybe it's not the full 75, but it is that sort of seed money concept. And, perhaps dialogue does continue on, where the funds go. I do like that as the opportunity to be supportive at this point.
Okay. Ms. Frazier?
Agree with some of what Ms. Barber is saying, but I also disagree with her saying that we should not fund them because they're not doing enough. I think we should fund them so they can do a bit more. And that if we don't have the specifics on what they're doing, although in the proposal, they did say specifically a lot of stuff about what they wanted to do, not how they were going to do it, but what they wanted to achieve. So I really think we should try to find some money for the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. Other comments? So I think we're at the point where would somebody like to make a motion? Ms. Frazier?
I'd like to propose that we provide $35,000 per annum to the Chamber of Commerce for the next biennium, and that we find that money from the materials and services budgets in the general fund.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilor Groner is seconded. We have a motion to fund the chamber at $35,000 per year and take the money from materials and services in the general fund. Is there discussion? Yes, Councilor Bonington.
I think, again, it doesn't make or break the city's financial picture, and my preference would be not to further torture already strained departments by taking little bits from them and, again, go with reserves. For facts, I found out that Tualatin and what was the other one? Sherwood do not fund their chambers. However, Oregon City does, and they're at 400,000. So that's a big range there.
Thank you for that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second for 30,000 per year. Is there further discussion? 35, I apologize, my mistake.
I'd like to take the committee's pulse on what Councilor Bonington just brought up. Was do you want to cut from materials and services, or if we're going to fund this, draw from the reserves that we have? I don't know how, I mean, Board Member Kablea, you wanted to support the chamber. How do you have a lot of financial experience as well with Pacificor? How do you look at this picture?
Yeah.
Sorry to pick on you.
No, it's a tough one, even just kind of the reserves and taking from elsewhere. I feel like the pulling from elsewhere doesn't bother me because I feel like they are kind of smaller dollars here and there that pulling to me, I would be comfortable with that. But, I understand big picture as well that, from the reserves, there's going to be a challenge regardless, and it's not going to make a material difference. I probably, if I'm thinking of what I would do at our company, I would probably pull it from other areas.
Okay. Further discussion? Then I think we'll call a roll. And the motion is 35,000 a year for the Chamber of Commerce and pulling the money from materials and services across the general fund.
Okay.
Mr. Williams, did you have?
I'm gonna do it. Lauren's doing some math.
Okay.
I'm gonna go backwards. Abby Farber,
No.
Brian Beadle,
Yes.
Kevin Bonington,
No.
Richard Larson,
No.
Carol Wright,
No.
Ann Frazier,
Yes.
Rory Bielostowski.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, Mary Baumgartner. Lou Theo Griner.
Yes.
Yes.
Got that down?
That pass or fail? I got to do some counting here.
It was like 3 to whatever.
What was the count, Dylan?
All right, hang on. I apologize for that. That was my error. Yeah.
Okay, so the motion is, passes 6-4 to fund Chamber of Commerce at 35,000 a year and reduce materials and services in the general fund. Okay,
And my plan would be, those would be the changes that I outlined. And so in a way, you've created a compromise between the two ideas.
thank you, Mr. Williams. I think we are now down to the budget presentation, starting with Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome Eric and Morgan. Eric Weiss and Morgan Lovell from our Engineering and Public Works Department. Let's see.
Hey, Nikki, thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot.
While everyone's getting settled, Chair, if I may just say thank you to Main Street and the Chamber representatives who are here and all the time that you spend. We appreciate you.
Yes, so well, which fund are you going to start with, Derek?
Well, first with a little general update on our department, and thank you for having me tonight, and having Morgan as well. Eric Leyes, Public Works Director, City Engineer. Like other department directors, on Tuesday, this is actually my first run at department budget approval. Last time I was right at the transition between directors, and Morgan had taken the lead on that one and did a great job. This time she was like, we're taking the training wheels off, big fella, so it's your turn. But anyway, I thought I'd kind of give a little update on some things happening in our department, and then we can get into the budget stuff. Like other departments, FTEs, other than the quarter FTE shared between building and planning and engineering, the FTEs is staying the same in our division department. The other thing that we've made changes and gotten creative with the help of Alyssa's team in HR is to have an assistant public works director. Since I've been the director, I've seen the need with the separation of, I'm mainly up here at City Hall, operations is down the road. So with some exiting with retirement and so on, moving around with staff, we were able to create an assistant public works director, and that's been filled with Matt Katz's promotion. So we're super excited to have him in that role. You know, we had an incident today that, you know, again, he stepped up and did well leading through that situation. The other thing we're really trying to focus on in engineering and public works is retention. As you all know, I'm sure it's hard to recruit and retain employees. So we're, again, getting creative in engineering, having a career ladder, creating a step between an associate engineer and a civil engineer, a licensed engineer, so that we can retain those junior engineers. And that's worked out well for us. You know, Morgan's a good example, moving into support services supervisor as a manager. So super excited with those changes we've made, you know, getting the right people in the right places. And then again, back to our boil water issue this morning, you know, we're down at Public Works, we've created this pretty versatile, a lean, mean group that, again, telemetry issue, communications. Nobody was, should have been 3 people gotten a call. It didn't happen. But there was, 3 people that knew how to handle it and were right on it. It could have been a lot worse of a situation. So super excited about those folks in those positions down there. And then finally, I just wanted to share in this, John actually presented this idea to me about team culture and logos and so on. So I just wanted to share real quick something we've been working on in Public Works. And after he gave me the idea, we found out that one of our utility workers had already started this idea to create team logos and kind of a culture of each division in Public Works. And so we tasked him to take off and do it for the other divisions as well. And what's interesting is it's created this kind of competitive nature down there. These have gone through probably 5 different renditions, and everybody's kind of got their flair. So I think it's a neat kind of a transition as we move into our new facility. Hopefully next year or so, everybody can kind of have their flair. They're still working on engineering. They were joking around that how do we make a logo of somebody sitting at a desk with their, but anyway, we're working through that. So great atmosphere down there. Super proud of all the guys and gals down there working. We're getting a lot done, as you'll see in a little bit. We're thin like the other departments, but we're trying to make improvements in the right places. So just thought I'd open with that. So with the agenda tonight with Public Works funds, I do have a question for the group. So we're covering Public Works support services, streets, water, sanitary sewer, storm. SDC's going to talk about the GO bond, and then capital improvement plan. And as I was going through preparing some notes on each fund, my question is, do you want to cover the capital improvement projects as we go through the fund, or just wait and cover those projects all at the end with the capital improvement plan?
I think as we go through the fund is probably the best.
Okay, that makes sense to me, but I wanted to see what everybody.
I think that makes sense too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if at the end you want to see the farther forecast, out the 5 years instead of just the 2, we can go into that. So first one's Public Works Support Services.
That's page 72 of the
Oh.
binder.
Thank you.
And well, most of the rest have tabs that are pretty easy to find. But
Yeah.
if you can't find them, let us know. Just picking up on Eric's comment, I just wanted to remind you, we looked at this table Tuesday as well, but we do have all of the utility funds included in that personnel comparisons chart, right? So Eric's thought on our crews being relatively thin relative to other cities, I think you can see that in this chart as well. People are always amazed, for example, when I say we have 4 people on our street department, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem possible.
Yeah.
But there we are. So anyway, 72, and keep going, Eric. Thank you.
Thanks for that reminder, John. I was going to make a point of that as we go into support services with engineering. We're at 10.25 positions. That includes GIS, our communications, and engineering. And if you compare it to LO, they're at 24.25, I think, in engineering. So quite a bit difference. So with support services, we cover or we're responsible for project planning, design, management, and oversight for water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, and streets. Consists of civil engineers, associate engineers, technicians, and as I mentioned, the GIS and administration. Talked about the 0.25 increase for front counter position. And as we have moved forward these last couple of years, we have been utilizing more consultant services for design and project management. So as you see, there will be a slight increase in personal services contracts. And jump in here anytime.
Just to clarify, the personal services increases in the material services budget, not personnel. Just a good distinction for that. These are contracted professional personal services for things like construction management. That's part of an engineer design that we might contract to help us facilitate a large scale construction project, such as like the 10th Street corridor and the Salama Road bike path. Those are examples of specialized outsourced technical knowledge that we bring in to help support staff.
Any questions on support services? All right, moving on to streets. That's actually just the next page. No,
Page 91
91.
on the tab.
So with those 5 FTEs, they maintain approximately 216 lane miles of our city streets. The street budget does include funding for road maintenance and other capital projects. And then we have, as a council goal, we have been focusing on traffic safety. And with that, in this budget, we are doing more ADA improvement projects, sidewalk infill. Let's see, to balance the funds, normally we would do a big road program every year, paving project. Now this summer, for example, we're going to do a large paving project. Next summer, we'll do more in-house maintenance projects, crack sealing, slurry seal, more patching. And we're able to do more of that in-house with some of the equipment that we're either renting or have purchased. And so, it would be great to catch up more with some of that paving, but we're doing with what we can. For 26 and 27, you'll see that there is a large increase in the fund balance, and that's due to the utilities portion of the new operations facility. I believe we have 4 million for 26 in each division, and then 2.5 for 27. So streets right now is our healthiest budget, and we're just trying to get those projects underway. We're in design right now for the summer's paving project. We're a little bit behind schedule, but we're working on getting that out the door. So anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, as Eric stated, we are kind of focusing on pedestrian and bike safety in the next biennium. Also, there is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon projects that we are adding at specific strategically identified crossing improvements that are coming out from some pedestrian corridor and safety planning studies that are currently underway in this biennium.
Questions about the street fund? I did have one, Eric. On page 92, there's a ratio calculated of the street maintenance fund revenue collected per year as a percentage of street maintenance fund to state gas tax. The percentage there, I am having a hard time coming up with it, and I don't understand the significance of that statistic.
I think that's a good question for our finance director.
Well, I can speak to the statistic is simply to compare the amount of work that we do from funds raised locally to funds raised from the state.
But
Right.
if you look at the numbers,
So, but the math part might be a different question, but the intention is to show how much we're funding our own street projects locally versus relying on the state of Florida's gas tax. So I haven't had time to look at that number. Can Lauren and I look at that? And we'll move on?
absolutely, you bet.
Sure.
I just have one question about streets and I don't know if we get any of this. Is there any federal funding that we're getting for maintaining our streets? I know there's Highway Traffic Administration, none of that. And none we have to worry about not getting in the future.
If you look in our long-range CIP, we were awarded federal funding for some road improvements on Willamette Falls Drive between 16th and Ostman. That money is programmed to be spent and received between fiscal years 28 and 29. So we do strategically apply for federal funding. They are a little bit more cumbersome to manage at the local level. So we try to be very thoughtful and strategic in how we do that, since there is much broader requirements for NEPA and other kind of studies that are required. And we also are required to build to a different standard than we would for a locally managed project. We're also not able to manage our own projects at the local level, which means the state needs to manage the projects on our behalf. So that is also something that's happened with the Highway 43 corridor that we've previously gotten some funding for, that we're just now kind of in the midst of construction at the Merrill-Hurst intersection. And that was through previously federally funded monies as well.
Okay, so checking the math, they look okay to me. I was doing some mental math. So the numbers you'd be looking at are the page before, page 91. You'd be looking at the revenues from intergovernmental gas tax and the revenues from fees and charges, street maintenance fee. And so you can see, like, just take the first column, 2022, they were almost really, really similar numbers. And when you go to the calculation, it was 51% street maintenance fee. So, and then it looks to me like this year, we are, say take the last column, 2027, we are projecting more money from street maintenance fee. So that street maintenance fee looks like it's going up relative to gas tax, which is staying very flat. So that explains the percentage increase. I didn't get out my phone to do the actual numbers.
So it's the fees and charges over the total of the fees and charges and the gas
I think
tax.
the narrative could be a little more clear.
Okay.
So what's the significance of that statistic? I mean, is there a target we're trying to meet, or?
And you folks jump in. I think one of the key things that we talk about a lot and that we hear a lot about in Salem is that the gas tax is not increasing very much. So the funds that cities and counties and ODOT are getting from the gas tax are not increasing as much as the cost to do work. So the purchasing power is going down. Increasingly, cities and counties are looking to other sources of funding to make up that hole.
Okay.
So I think that's what we're trying to convey with that. I appreciate the question, though, because we don't really call that out. We just include some numbers. I love the question. There's a lot of sentences in here that probably go unexamined unless someone asks a question like that. So we appreciate that.
Okay, so other questions on street front? Councilor Bonington, please.
I just want to take a second to point out something I think is really cool with those flashing rectangle signs. That's a really good example of being resourceful and finding a solution when maybe we can't afford to do larger things. Seeing those go in and how much of an impact they actually had on like Parker and Sunset, which still needs a lot of help there, has been really impressive. So I think that's a great example of what I'd like to see as much of possible.
And that's coming through our traffic safety committee. And so we're trying to get creative with the signage through MUTCD and so on, so that you know, so much of it's enforcement, but we're trying to do what we can to help with the speed limit.
Do you want to move on to the water fund?
Before we leave streets, traditionally, vehicle, fleet and vehicle, maintenance is under streets. I just wanted to touch real quick on, where we are with that. That's on page, 74. So we have 80 vehicles, 195, almost 200 pieces of equipment, all maintained mostly by 1.5 FTEs. Our fleet's in a good spot, I believe right now. Lauren and I just had a meeting today addressing that going forward. Most of them updated in a good spot, you know, for the next 10, 15 years. You will see some money in the budget for in environmental services for a CCTV van. We have a van that we put a camera in the storm or sewer pipes to find blockages, laterals, so on. It might be 8-track, but it's running off VHS, I think, tape still. The van itself is in good shape, really low miles an hour. So we're doing an equipment update retrofit and keeping the van. So that's programmed for 250,000 in there. I don't believe our quote is for that much, but that's what we have programmed because that was for a whole new van. And then you'll see also the water department needs a new kind of a medium duty commercial vehicle to tow and work with our excavator that we have. The normal F450, 550s aren't legally allowed, equipped to haul that much weight. So we're going to upgrade one of their service trucks. I believe there's 150 programmed in the water fund for that. Any questions on vehicles?
Any questions on vehicles? I do see you have 300,000 for equipment for the new operations center in 27. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that is specifically for the fleet maintenance shop. So that will be lifts and like, you know, tire machines, frames, things like that that will need to outfit the new vehicle.
Happy to see you got that in the budget.
Yeah.
And the vehicle maintenance staff also supports all PD vehicles. Well, we outsource a lot of them, but the fleet management of those and coordinating with PD to make sure that the entire city's fleet is healthy.
Okay. Anything else on the waterfront? Any other comments, questions? If you're ready, you can move.
All
on.
right, so water, our water group maintains 121 miles of pipe, 6 water reservoirs, 7 pump stations, and we'll be taking over 1,000 water quality samples over this year. Ironically, we do have newer telemetry communications. We just recently switched over to all cellular based telemetry communications, but everything's prone to act up once in a while. So back to you can hold up your water bottle, John. Okay. So the water fund balance looks super healthy compared to others, but a lot of that is carryover from our I-205 pipeline project that it's been a couple of years now. Carrying that over, still looking, waiting for when ODOT gets to that point on the bridge that we'll get our water line updated. So that is keeps moving ahead. And again, as I mentioned, there's 4 million in there for the operations center this 26 and then 2.5 in 2027. Oh, other big projects for water that we're looking to implement over the next biennium is automatic meter readings. There's 500,000 in each year, really over the next 5 years, and you can see that in the capital plan in the back. We're doing it in a phased approach. It's total, we estimated it's about a $2.5 million project. But if we phase it in right, then we won't be replacing 9,200 batteries in 10 years all at once. We can phase it out, and this will take our meter readings down from approximately a 2-week period to 2-hour collection time. So it would be really helpful. We have issues. There's not a lot of contractors that do meter readings, so their fee continues to increase. Inaccurate readings, misreadings, you name it. So this would clean all that up and bring more revenue into the water fund and into the city. So good news there. Yeah, that was one of the big projects for water. Am I missing a water project? Just our normal water replacement. We're currently underway, going to get started here pretty soon with some main replacement. So look for that out really all over, but kind of focused in the Robinwood area, heavy area up there, and all in precursor to our summer paving project, get ahead of the paving. So good news there, get all the substandard cast iron and asbestos cement mains replaced with ductile iron. So any questions for water?
Carol Breck, I think you have a question.
So as the AMR project comes on, then you will have the contracted meter readers not read those, just read the other ones that haven't been updated. And if you have any questions that come up on AMR reads, then would it be city staff that would go out to verify those reads? Because city staff verifies the bad reads from meter readers right now, correct?
I believe so. And I think there's a large portion of our meters now are set up to have the automatic meter reading. So yeah, it would be all staff as far as I know.
So the end of the 5-year program, you don't have a contract with
Correct.
meter readers anymore.
And I believe our recent contract with the meter readings is, I mean, you could basically have a new full-time employee with that.
It's about 125,000 a year for them to read the meters.
Yeah.
Other questions for Eric on the water fund? Okay, I think you can move on. Environmental?
Yeah, so our environmental fund is split up into 2 funds really, stormwater and sanitary sewer. I'll start out with sanitary sewer. There's a tab for that, correct?
Page 99.
Yeah. So with the sewer, again, small crew, 6.5 employees. This year on track to clean about 220,000 linear feet of sewer pipe. A lot of deferred maintenance over the years, so they're getting caught up with that. 116 miles of sewer pipe in our city, and about 3,100 manholes and 7 sewer lift stations. One is brand new. We're still on Calaroga Drive. We're still working out punch list items with that, trying to get that closed out. Yeah, as I mentioned that, and then moving in this next biennium, we are planning to get back into the I&I projects, as we call them, inflow and infiltration. We haven't done one in several years, just due to bandwidth and engineering and able to funding, saving up for the Caledonia Pump Station. But it's a good program. As you may or may not know, our wastewater goes to Clackamas County at the Wes's wastewater treatment plant, and they have I think their goal was to have a 65% reduction between the three cities, Gladstone, Oregon City, and West Lynn, in I&I by 2035, I believe. And so they've created a grant program where they'll pay for 30% of projects that reduce I&I into their system, because and I'm sorry, I&I, so inflow and infiltration. Inflow would be water coming into the sanitary sewer from like stormwater, cross connection, roof drains that are directly tied into the sewer. Infiltration is groundwater seeping in, leaky joints, that sort of thing. And so by reducing that water coming into the system, it's less treatment that they have to do, take care of, and or expand their plant again. So going to get back onto that project over the next couple of years. Yeah, we haven't, I think we've done five or six, but we haven't done an I&I project since 21. So that's kind of the big one for sewer. The sewer fund is down because of the pump station project. That was what are we going to be at? 2.3 million?
I would say it's the largest single sewer project we've done in several years. So that is one that we had kind of saved some money for. Eric can get into the details if you want about why it was needed, but it was a strategic and very important pump station that needed to be repaired and was very substandard. So that has taken a big chunk of money out of our capital fund. And so we will be kind of focusing on maintenance projects throughout the next several years so we can rebuild that fund a little bit. And then we can go into storm a little bit as well. Environmental services and sewer both have had some larger spending, and we will be trending downward a little bit on our revenues. You can see that in your chart and little graph on page 99. But that again is because we've been doing larger projects at the moment. And something some people don't understand is when we do road projects, it's not just road and pavement. There's a lot of storm work that goes into those projects. So for the Athey Creek project, the city's partnership with the school doing the public improvements on the street, storm drains, curb and gutter, that is all money that comes from the storm fund. So when we do those projects for the 10th Street corridor and Salamo Road, storm funds are paid in collaboration with streets. So that is part of where those funds go. But we do have some good projects planned for 26 and 27 that are well needed as well.
Other questions on environmental? I have two questions, and one is, so when you do those new projects on the stormwater, so do you have separate retention and detention facilities so that doesn't go into the sewer system when you do a new project? 'Cause that's what the I&I is all about, right? Is surface stormwater going into the sewage system?
It is. There's two parts of it. So the inflow is the ground, the surface water, and the infiltration is groundwater. But the basins that you see around town, that's a water quality issue. That doesn't pertain directly to I&I.
So the catch basins, I guess my question then is, where does that water go?
From the catch basins, or
Streets, yes.
typically it's collected in the catch basins, and then it's piped to a water quality facility somewhere where it allows the silt and the contaminants from the road to settle out and absorb through the vegetation and whatnot, and then it'll outfall to a drainage way.
But it doesn't end up in the sewage system.
No, it's
Okay,
not supposed to.
not supposed to, right? I understand.
So we have a separated storm and sewer system. Some cities and
that's what I'm-
jurisdictions have combined, ours are separate. So
Okay.
we have separate storm pipes and separate sewer pipes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the second question I have is, if I look at the capital improvement plan and look at the budgets, the numbers that are highlighted in tan, are those unfunded? And then the blue ones are funded projects?
So the ones that have no background are the funded projects.
Okay,
The blue is the headers.
okay,
And then the ones in the tan, pinky, orangey color are unfunded.
so a lot of the surface water stuff is in the out years that's unfunded at this moment.
Yeah, so we do like to show our needs for maintenance and kind of the relationship with our available revenues and the actual needs outlined in our master plans and our maintenance programs for capital spending.
Thank you.
And that question was about the capital improvement plan starting on page 141. So that's this road.
Yes, and those outline our,
Get back to that section.
yeah, they're further reaching than the 2-year biennium that we are discussing currently.
Okay, great, thank you. Other questions on environmental services? Do you have anything else, Eric?
Yeah, just real quick, Morgan hit on all the big points for stormwater, I think. I was just going to add that we are trying to, we've had a lot of deferred maintenance over the years, so we are trying to do a lot of those smaller projects in-house. You may have noticed, and I don't think we fixed it, but why is there water coming out of Tandler Drive on the hill? They put an under drain in there trying to collect that and get it over to a manhole or a catch basin. So we're just trying to do projects like that in-house that our crew is, within their bandwidth of performing. So all good news. And anyway, I can move on to, I guess we're on to SDC.
Yes.
I'll just introduce it and then if Morgan wants to jump in so with our SDCs, with our lack of available growth, our SDCs have transitioned down. First, a couple years ago with our streets, when we updated the streets SDCs, with our recent water master plan, we're finishing up the second portion of that, which included SDC updates. Those water SDCs are trending down quite substantially due to our lack of growth available in the system. And also doing sewer as well. That'll be coming actually to council in September. But yeah, those are all trending down. So not a lot of fund balance in the SDC funds. We use those to supplement these larger capital projects where we can, but we're not relying heavily on those to fund our capital projects.
I think the important distinction to note with SDCs is they can only spend on capacity expanding projects. So we can't use them to maintain things or for status quo. They actually have to increase the capacity of a utility, and they're leveraged usually against development. When new development comes in, they pay a portion into SDCs to accommodate for that additional service that's going to be put onto the system. So as the city develops and we have less development and we're more infill, there's less SDCs being paid. And then we have to update our methodology. There's less expansion available, which brings the revenues down as well. So that's kind of where we're at. And again, we can't use them for every project. So they're very strategic. The big spend we will be using SDCs for is part of the I-205 water line project within the water SDC fund. The water pipe that is being replaced is getting larger. So it's an expansion of capacity, which means we are allowed to use a portion of that. 1.2 million is funded for that project. Otherwise, it's staying pretty flat, and we will use it just strategically as we can as the years come. But you'll see there is not a lot of capital spending, at least not in the sewer funds, or I mean, in the utility funds in the next biennium or 6-year CIP.
Any comments or questions on SDC fund? Hearing none, I think you can move ahead.
All right. Almost there. So the GEO bond, the 2018 GEO bond for parks and transportation, we've spent our.
111.
Yep. Okay. We've spent our transportation money down. We have approximately 450,000 that we're working on a safe routes to school design project in the Sunset area. So that's basically the remainder of the budget from that 2018 GO bond.
And if you want some highlights, what the GO bond was spent on within transportation, the Main Street corridor improvements, part of the 10th Road, Salamo Road, the Sunset improvements, part of the paving project, the Cedar Oak project that was completed recently. Those were the big spends for transportation improvements.
Okay. Questions on the GEO bond? All right. Capital improvement plan. You fit portion of it pretty well.
So so page 141. Each to it. Yeah, just gonna get my glasses. I've touched on the 26 and 27 capital projects planned as for streets. I don't know, do we want to go through?
I think if you hit the big highlights and then we can see if there's questions.
Okay.
I think you've talked about a number of capital projects
Yeah.
already. If there's things in here that you want to cover that you haven't mentioned, otherwise I think you can not do the favor.
Okay. I don't, have we missed anything?
I'm not sure that anything big has been missed that I can recall.
I think that just
Any questions about what any of these are? It's hard to get a project description into as small a font as we use. It's still hard to get a real accurate description of a project in this one line.
But a full CIP document will be produced, and that has project descriptions for everything and detail of all the funding sources. But yeah, I think we did touch on all of the big projects. Again, you'll see in streets in fiscal years 28, 29 that we do have grant money coming in, and there is a street match to that for the multimodal improvements between 16th and Osman. Those will continue the Main Street corridor improvements that were previously constructed. Otherwise, I think it paints a picture of the investment we're able to make and then the investment that is still needed but unable to accomplish with current revenues.
I think the one thing that would be worth at least a minute of comment is on the operations center and how I appreciate the creativity of how you have, split out the cost for that. On the other hand, it makes it a little more complicated to track in the budget. So maybe if you could just explain to the committee where the money for the operations center is coming from, the cost, and then when we issue the debt, how the payments on the debt are going to be split out, please.
Sure, I can touch on that, and Lauren can elaborate as needed. We are getting a full faith credit obligation bond, which will fund the facility. It is being split equally among all utility funds, including parks. What you're seeing in the 2-year CIP budget is the expenditure, the payment for construction. After that's done, we will have a debt service annually that is leveraged on a percentage basis, and it's scheduled over 20 years amongst all the funds. So that is a way for us to be able to absorb that debt strategically, maintain a debt service payment each year without significantly impacting our material services or other capital improvement projects.
So is 33 million the total estimated cost for the center?
It's estimated to be around 35. You'll see in fiscal year 25 for the utility funds, we have 500,000 that's already been expended of that kind of, that we've absorbed already, just for transparency. So we're thinking about 35 million total. That's hard costs and soft costs. So that's final designs, that is the owner's representative, that is not just construction. But we have been in a design process for a couple of years. So we have been paying a little bit of that money through our fees. That will be reimbursed essentially with a full faith and credit obligation once that money. So you'll see 500,000 in water, storm, sewer, and streets. Well, is that all the right? Yeah. So that is why you see 2.5 instead of 3. Because you'll see in parks 4 and 3, because parks has not yet been contributing. So they'll kind of make up that 500,000 contribution in 25 and 26 and 27. It's a little, I don't know if you could follow that train of thought, but
It was
let
due to
Aaron.
budget timing, basically, and when we were putting the capital plans together and what we were planning. And so it was one way in the utility funds and another way in the parks fund, but it is 7 million total over the 3 years for all 5 areas.
Okay, that's.
That was more succinct. Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, so the utility funds have 500,000 this year, 4 million next year, and then 2.5 million in the 3rd year. The Parks and Rec has 4 million next year and 3 million in 2027.
Okay.
So it's just a shift between the years.
And then after you issue the debt and make payments, are you going to split the debt payments equally in the same proportion?
Yes, so you'll see in the budget that it does have it split evenly amongst all the departments. So they all have
Okay,
the same amount of debt service scheduled.
that's 35 million. I thought it was worth a minute.
Absolutely.
Thank you for asking those questions. Help.
All right, any other questions for Eric on Public Works? If not, I think we are ready to move on. Thank you, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for everyone's time.
Appreciate
tonight.
it, Morgan. Yes. You know what? It's been requested that we take a 5-minute break. So I'll call back to order the Budget Committee for the City of West Lynn. Just for a minute for looking at our agenda and time. I'd like to at least get through the parks, and then the rest of it is really fairly perfunctory if we can move through that, or if the people want to power through. Hearing no objection, rather than having to come back next week. Okay.
The rest of it should be very quick.
Right.
Usually, I don't think we have any public testimony, so
Right.
it should be really quick.
Okay. So I will turn it over to John and Megan and for the Parks Department.
Thank you so much. I would love to introduce another director of our departments who is also new to the budget process this time around, Megan Bigjohn, and we are very proud to have her here to introduce the variety of areas that she has responsibility for in our budget. I think we'll just start with Parks, which is on page 60. And Parks, again, you'll remember, is one of those tabs that is in two places now. So let's look at page 60.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm excited to be here. And again, a newbie at the table. I've been here about a year and a half. And coming in, I wanted to be able to learn to be a part of the team and see what was needed and how I can best support the staff that's here with the current services that they're providing. And what that has done is we've really taken a look at our foundation of our department. What are our best practices? What are deficiencies we have? And honestly, what things were frustrating staff that had not been solved that I could help them work on. So we are, I broken down because we're into 4 areas. So I was going to talk about each of those 4 areas really quickly to get you out of here. But it's really important because you realize that parks, people just think of it's health and wellness and environmental care and land stewards. And so it's really a valuable work that we do. And that really was amplified even more so through COVID when everybody was outside and alone and finding ways to be able to continue to bring people together in the community. So in parks, we have 9 FTE staff that are full-time with 1 park supervisor. That's about 66 acres per person, since we have around 600 acres of parks to manage. We also have, in that department, we have a certified arborist. I am well as a certified arborist, as well as pool specialists who manage our splash pads that have to be monitored every 2 hours. We also have playground inspectors where we monitor our 18 playground features every month and do the maintenance on those as they go through. We also have 2 of us who are certified Parks and Recreation professionals, myself and Tara, our Park Recreation Supervisor as well. And so I just want to share with you some of the breadth of certifications and knowledge that we have within our department. During the 2018 GO Bond, the majority of the projects you saw that were installed in parks were done by our staff. So what that meant, which also that means we have a very talented staff, but what that meant was that maintenance was kind of slipping behind. And so what I'm working with the park staff on is to build that maintenance structure back and really focus on a deferred maintenance with a priority of safety as our number 1. We're conservative with our spending this year as I came in the middle of the biennium. So really understanding what our spending practices were and how we can optimize that. Sometimes you need to spend more on professional services or contractors to save your back, to use your money wisely, and just to really look where we can optimize. Part of that group also, we support all of our volunteers as well. So we provide drop boxes and we help pick up. Everybody believes those work parties are ran by Solve, but they're actually ran by our Parks and Recreation Department in coordination with the Recreation and Park side. On the recreation staff, we have 2 full-time or 2 FTE that produce all of our community programming. So when you think about that, that includes all of the summer brochures that you see, that I set them up there, that come out quarterly, as well as all of the community events, including the fair. That it has one FTE of a supervisor and a half-time office specialist. Through the summer, we do bring on 14 seasonal staff members to help support the recreation side to put on our in-house camps. And that's 29 weeks of camps that we provide for the community that we do in-house. All of our camps are contracted out. I did forget to mention that for the park side, we do bring 8 seasonals in to help support, and that covers our weekends and all of our evening coverage as well. Over the year with the recreation staff, we have really reviewed what programs we're offering, what was not filling, and dropped those programs, looked at gaps that we are missing. in our recreational offerings, reviewed our fee schedules, and reviewing how we do our reservations with our shelters and our buildings. And we were able to really find some really improvement and streamline, as well as how we're managing resident and non-resident rates. They were all kind of over the board to start, and now we've got that streamlined. One thing with our revenue for Parks and Recreation is all of our funding is kind of split between two bienniums. If you consider, we rev up in December getting ready for summer, and then we receive a lot of our revenue for all of our camps at the end of that fiscal year. And then we don't have as much revenue the following year. So same thing when it comes down to master fees. If we're doing picnic shelters and those don't start until April, if we had an increase in fees, we miss part of that for the following year. So we're kind of always staggering between the two. The other part of the area that people sometimes forget is the Adult Community Center. And I'd like to be able to say this, that's ran by one FTE. So I have the catalog up over here, and you can see all of the programming that they provide. It is quite impressive. On an average, there's 350 people that sign in, that come into the Adult Community Center weekly. The kitchen served last year over 1,200 meals that are made. We serve lunch on Wednesdays. And then we also partner with Pioneer Adult Community Center in Oregon City, who provides our Meals on Wheels. And last year, the data they gave us, there was over 6,000 meals that were delivered. There was over 1,700 trips that they provided to those who needed transportation within the city. And then also 53 reassurance checks that were provided. So if somebody needed help or got a call, they would go in and check on that person. It's a really great program for us to be able to expand our offerings. The ACC also offers free classes such as singing, band jam, coffee time, bridge, open craft, pinnacle, and my favorite is table tennis for Parkinson's. They also put on 3 different dances that support neurodivergent adults as well as youth. It's pretty cool. So I just wanted to give you a little overview of what we are up to. And when you look at our budget, a lot of the increases are for some of the things that we have not been able to maintain over time, such as our athletic fields, our trails. There had been a real concern about recreational immunity with our trail systems. We have a lot, and they're amazing. They're great connectors, but now they're needing to be repaired as far as stairs and amenities that have been in there. We're looking at let's see, what else were we thinking of doing? We have playgrounds that need to be replaced that we're looking at. That's for capital, but our basic maintenance is looking at how do we provide that increased service, making sure our restroom facilities are being taken care of, like making sure the floor is coated so that the reduction of smell and slip, making sure our splash pads are being improved and managed, for example, like those have to be monitored every two hours when you consider. So right now, when the hours are only open from 10 to 6, it's because of staffing levels. But we did spend money last year, and we'll be coming out of our maintenance money to be able to modernize that, where we can do some of that monitoring from phones, but still that they're classified as pools. So when you think about that, right? So with the boil water notice, the splash pad up at Merrillhurst was definitely closed. With recreational programming, like I mentioned, we're looking at diversifying where we're missing gaps. And so one area that we're really wanting to increase is environmental education. So when you look at that, we didn't change any of our fee structure, but that's an area that we're really wanting to add to because it ties back into our land management and trying to create those next stewards that want to come and help us volunteer within our parks. Okay. So when it comes to the budget line items, we were pretty much status quo. There was one area that had a larger increase was our personal services, specifically besides trails and some of our basic maintenance. Since last April, our city arborist had retired. And I don't know if you realize the arborist role in the tree code falls under this department. As that person had retired, it was originally a half-time FTE and then kind of transformed into a full-time FTE. So I've taken this last year with the great kindness of Mike Perkins, who was a previous city arborist years back and is still an arborist, and really looked to evaluate what is going on with that program and how is it serving the community and protecting trees. And we found that there's quite a few things that need to be updated that is not working for the community or for us as the arborist. So what we've done right now is we have a consulting arborist that's on staff who's helping us work for those tree code revisions and suggestions that we're still working with council and the community on. But the goal is to hope to be able to change that position to continue that consulting arborist and be able to bring in a parks project manager or a parks analyst to be able to help support the work that we're doing with the department, since we don't have an assistant director either. So that's one thing that's coming up. We've had, that fee was, or that cost was already increased last year. We made it work, and then now it's just being added to our current budget. Is there any other questions?
Great, thank you. Megan, are there questions for the Parks Director?
As a user of some of the adult center services, I commend you on its operation. It is very useful.
Well, and I can't take any credit for that. Tara and Nicole up there do a fabulous job. And again, trying to support them to optimize so they don't burn out is kind of my big key. And I will definitely share that sentiment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other comments? Thank you again. I think we're,
Do you want to go any farther to the capital, or do you want to switch? How did you guys want to do that? Or were you guys good?
yeah, you can walk us through the capital outlay.
Okay. Kind of to skip over SDC, not to skip it, but to mention I'm in a similar situation where Public Works was, right? There's not a lot coming into it. And so I'm holding that funding currently right now for future projects coming up as we're trying to stabilize what we have right now in our parks area. And what you're going to see with the capital, I was really conservative in what that is. You know, capital is for growth, and SDCs are for capacity building. And as I'm still evaluating what our deferred maintenance is, I was very strategic and not over promising or overdoing what we might be able to do. I wanted to take the projects that really were promised, needed, and list these here. And I have told John and Lauren that over the next 2 years, that deferred maintenance list will grow and need to be evaluated. But the primary concerns are always with safety. But there are some commitments that we had started that we wanted to continue to finish through. So highlights for the parks. We're going to be part of a couple things that have really failed for us is the Marius Young Bridge. It's closed currently. I just went down and explored and took boards off with a couple of staff members, and it's really going to need to be replaced. The upper portion of that bridge area, as well as there's a bridge over at North Willamette that needs to be replaced. That is really starting to fail as well, and so we'll be able to hopefully do that one in-house, but it's going to take some dollars. Looking at also just general maintenance that we have, like I mentioned, restroom upgrades to keep those safe and functioning. Looking at some of the smaller, not necessarily playground replacements, but just smaller maintenance that we have in general that will need to be done, as well as I'm just going blank for a second, as well as some of the trail maintenance is kind of a big deal as well with this. So if there's any questions, I can answer any of those. I'm gonna go.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, Mrs.
Since
Barber?
Marius Young technically belongs to the state, does it not? Are they chipping in anything to help with maintenance, or does it just all land on us?
I'm hoping, but currently with our lease agreement, anything within that park is under our responsibility to maintain and repair. Currently, our lease agreement was up the year before the year I got here, and we're working right now with our city attorney on the lease agreement that they proposed and looking at potentially if there is some potential cost sharing from them. The current offering was that they would support grants for us, but when you consider it's 133 acres, it's a lot of acreage out of our park, and it's parks, and it's beautiful. But that's where I am hoping that we might be able to get some support from them. It is the largest parcel of land that a city manages for the state. So, yes. So I'm hopeful.
Question becomes, who signed that lease in the first place years ago?
Yep. The description for that was to be able to provide the outdoor experience for the city of the citizens of West Lynn. But it's clearly a regional park now. Yeah. So.
Other comments, other questions?
Oh, city, you want to go to facilities next?
Yes.
Is that good?
City facilities, page 52. Another Megan's responsibility.
Thank you. I didn't realize. Thank you.
Well, City facilities, I've taken again a long time to work with Jeremiah. We have one FTE for all of our facilities. He has over 110,000 square feet to manage 10 buildings. And when the new operations facility comes up, which is about 80,000 square feet, that's on Jeremiah. So when you look at his budget, again, it's relatively small all the way through. He has done really good job to the best of his ability to be able to try to juggle. He is the contract manager. He does all of his own invoicing. He just did complete a management certificate with the University of Oregon for project management. I was super excited to give him the opportunity, but he gathers his own quotes and he manages, you know, if a contractor needs to go to the PD to work on something, he has to be with them for the whole entire time of their work. So when you look at things that we're doing, he is juggling a ton. And my view is our city facilities that are open to the public need to be a top priority, such as the library and ACC, to make sure they're functioning for those who are coming in. And we're trying to work through that. One thing we are doing to try to optimize his time is we've got a work order system that we're getting to roll out, where each of the facilities will be able to put in a work order system where they can put the actual video of what's broken, the picture of what's broken. Right now, it just comes to an email and he has to sort that, and it's not great. But he is doing great, and he's been a part of a real big instrumental person as far as the historic city hall with his expertise, and as well as at the operations building. Jeremiah is awesome, so I'm fortunate to have him. A couple things that we are going to be working on with his current budget is it's been over every year. So Lauren, we worked through with John to kind of increase that when you're looking at the cost of either labor, materials, or even just general supplies. Our city facilities are cleaned by a company that provides all the current cleaning products, but we even realize that we don't have cleaning products that we can use ourselves here to be able just to clean the building when we need to. And so I'm going to be optimizing that as well. So again, that's almost a customer service for our own staff. For his budget is kind of status quo. Like again, the increases have been just solely on cost alone. So I can go to capital unless you had any questions.
Oh, please go.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes.
Just to comment, this is another one where it's like, we have one person doing this big job of maintaining the facility, just like one code enforcement officer. So as we think about as community members, like how we can get more staffing down the line, whether that's a levy or other creative ways, this is the sort of thing that we're talking about, how people really value our facilities, but they can't be maintained to a really high level when there's one person that's responsible for it, especially as we get like the operations center online.
Yeah.
So I just want to flag that. Really appreciate Jeremiah.
Yes.
If you think about it, say, this happens every day. Jeremiah's at the police department doing a thing. Let's say he gets a call and he has to be at Robinwood Station. That's 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes to get there and get back. And all of a sudden, that trip, we've just lost half an hour a day of our one person who does this. Nicola is the same. You know, it's to me, it's kind of like Eric saying, like, we're keeping the van, we're replacing the equipment. But we're going to keep the van, you know, it's sort of like, it's how we run things, and
Right.
it's all about that financial stewardship. But at some point it reaches that it's actually not good financial management.
Councilor Brake?
I just wanted to say how much we appreciate Jeremiah as well. He's amazing.
Well, and one thing I got, it's really neat to see people seem to have this thought that maybe our departments are very siloed. Jeremiah, the park staff will come help Jeremiah. Jeremiah will go and help the street department. Just the other day, a tree was being taken down in the right of way, and the parks crew was there with Jeremiah and with the street department. And I mean, they're all just like, everybody works together so well, and that's how we've been able to make it work. So when office furniture needs to be removed or a cubicle needs to be changed, that's Jeremiah. You know, so like when you see the holes in the wall, that's, you know, filter needs to be changed out. So really wanting to be able to use this software that we can show where our focuses are, where our largest, what building has the most needs, right? So we can really pare that down. And the other part of that is we are looking at, and John and I've talked about, we need to do a needs assessment for all of our facilities. I mean, we have buildings that are, 1999, roofs for 2002, so that's really what we're looking to do in this next year. Because I was kind of new to this process, there's things after I submitted my budget, and then you start thinking more and more. I've already got scribbles of how many more things to kind of work in and dovetail, but that's why when we get to this next 2-year review, I'll have a lot more robust deferred maintenance of what we really need to make some hard choices on.
Council President Baumgartner.
Thank you. And I really appreciate all of that you've done in transitioning into this role and everything that it entails that you've had to learn and get up to speed on. And I want to point out that we hear a lot from the public about wanting to transition away from using chemicals in parks and switch out from using gas-powered equipment, et cetera. But that all comes with costs because there are conveniences to using chemicals. And I'm not a huge fan of chemicals myself, but I do understand the need for them and that they are, if we had twice or 3 times as many park staff, maybe we could have them do it all by hand without using chemicals. But the reality is, people would complain about all the weeds. And so I think these are important discussions that we need to work into our communications is, do we want to have these things? Well, then how are we going to pay for it?
Right.
And I'd like to have that conversation.
I really appreciate you saying that. I could just give you a couple nuggets of hope and with this. We have 8 pack blowers for the Parks Department. We have purchased 4 electric. So when you look at a city in general of power equipment, we have 8. And you look at 27,000 people, so that's not that many. And we've already, without any additional budget, we just I said, I'd like to take those electric blowers and use them in our high use areas during the high peak of the season so we still can preserve the gas powered when we need them in the winter time as technology moves along. And then when it comes to even chemical use, there's a program called Integrative Pest Management Program. It's been my backbone for 14 years prior to coming here, and that is already, we're starting to instill that. So chemical use also goes down with just basic land management of mulching, water reduction, proper planting. Those are things that over time we'll be able to build, and we're already moving forward on that, but it does take time. Nobody wants to use chemicals. I mean, I'm even certified, I've stayed certified so I can be up to speed and know how to be able to educate and train our staff. And one thing with chemical use, it's personal. It's on the person who's actually applying it, not necessarily on the city. So we take that very seriously, but having those plans in place and having those things that will be approved by council is very important to our overall structure. So.
Thank you. You're a gem.
Second.
Thank you. Well, now that I remembered, I could see this copy better than the little tiny one. If you want to talk about capital for facilities, I can go over that a little bit easier. Or do you want to do that? Okay, great. Again, just like I did with parks, it's the basic needs of what's needing to happen. And there's a lot more in parks that is, or in facilities that's listed. We've got like siding on the ACC that needs to be replaced. The nails are pulling out on the south side because the sun has hit so hard on that. The HVAC on this, this actually is probably a little bit tied into the bond project, but this is the HVAC for this facility is part of the bond that we want to get completed. Overall, over time, we'd like to, with the larger 5-year plan, we want to get the roof replaced here at City Hall. There's 2 different phases of that, and we broke it up. Ideally, you'd want to replace the roof all at one time. There's a flat roof and a 3-tab roof. We broke it up over 2 years in case we needed to do that for cost-wise. There's just general City Hall maintenance that's not funded for this, that we're not asking for, but just in general, when you're looking at wear and tear of just the building itself, the carpet, any of the feature or updates that just taking care of this building will need to be done at some point. Also looking at the library HVAC system will need to be done in the next couple years as well. That system is really outdated, and it's actually gonna have to be an overhaul because they don't even make that system anymore. But we have that scheduled out for a few years later. Including adapting to smart controls, which is kind of interesting. I was trying to explain why it was separate, because right now it would be able to allow us to modernize all of our systems where you can use them from a phone and do the adaptability much quicker than having to be in here to push a button. We're still kind of back in that day. A lot of capital library maintenance isn't funded either, but it's sitting there that I want to make sure that it's known that we're going to be there to have to. Probably one of our highest use facilities. It's going to need that TLC as we go forward. Police station, even though it's new, we need to make sure that there was still some money. The floor in the kitchen needs to be replaced, and there'll be updates as things that go through as well. So we had some money earmarked for that. And then Sunset Fire Hall, which is one of our older facilities that is still operational and we still use it for, it's really our only main programming space besides the Adult Community Center. It doesn't have an ADA restroom. And so that was part of the Go Bond to get that updated, as well as we're going to do some modifications with our current budget with some of the kitchen spaces that are not even usable. And there's a stove that's not usable. So we're going to be opening that area up to make it more optimized. But eventually in the future, we're going to need to replace that roof as well. So even that's hoping that needs assessment that we'll be able to review, that'll give us a much robust, more really like, where do we need to spend our money? Where's our most danger and risk over the next few years so we don't end up with a larger cost of having a major leak in a roof over time. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, at the Library Advisory Committee, there was some discussion about a makerspace in the library, and that would require some, among other things, improved ventilation. Is that in the budget or?
I haven't had that request yet, so just looking at the basic maintenance of the facility, but those are things we'd always work with the library on for certain to look for maybe future years. But the ventilation would go straight to the HVAC system that we would have that needs to be put in there. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
With looking at these facilities, funding the upkeep of them is literally life and death. The police station is the emergency command center. The library is a critical shelter in weather events. Not having these things working will kill people. This is very important. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and same thing with the ACC, you know, it's our backup, but it's really a home to so many people that it's amazing. If you ever get a chance just to literally, if you drive by and walk in on a Tuesday, it is amazing to see the buzz walking through there. So even though we don't have a rec center right now, if you look at these facilities that we have, those are those pieces that really are our connection for community with that are not, you know, an event that we create. And so trying to bring that to the forefront, which we all know, but having something tangible of a document to review so we know how to move forward with those and to be able to plan financially over the time.
Are there other questions? I had one quick one. Last year at the community grants, we had a request for a grant to put a AED in the Bolton Robinwood station. Do all the city facilities have AEDs in them or?
So they do, and actually we're talking with the safety committee about that. I don't know if everyone, like Sunset Fire Hall does not, because we are not like housed out of that, but we're actually talking with the safety committee about that, about how it's managed, where's our funding for that, because we can partner, I believe, with the fire department on that as well. So that is something that's on our list to be able to have available over time. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, remember Beetle.
Hi there. Just real quick, I see that we're going to be putting another EV charger at the library, and I see the ones out here that are awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Incentives from the state on that actually help offset the cost to the city, or how's that work?
So the part that's great about that, thank you for bringing that up. That is actually a grant that we received. So that is where we'd be looking for that money. Now, I will be honest with you, in my time here, I have not been able to have a bandwidth to look for grant money, but I've received a lot of resources and options for funding, and I'm stacking those. So that's ultimately a goal where I need to get to for things like that, for EV charging, even for parks amenities and things. That's definitely a, yeah. Yeah, you know, grant money is not free, so you have to be able to manage it. Morgan's been a great asset to it, and then we have Stephanie, who's in finance, who's helping to look for those too. So we're kind of building to get there. Yeah. And I did have one parks thing that I wanted to make sure to share with you. And like I said, I felt a little, just my eyes were not quite working for me at that moment. But one of our biggest capital projects coming up there was started with a Go Bond project, and it comes to matching funds, is why I really wanted to bring it up, was the non-motorized boat launch area improvements down at Willamette Park. I apologize, I missed that when we were going through those, but that's a really big project. The Go Bond had funded 30% design drawings, which were just completed last week. And so we'll be looking for funding, and we have opportunities, not just from the city, to get that to 100% and then to work with actually the build out. And I've worked on it for three phases. So there's actually the walk-in, that's, asphalt road going down that needs to be replaced. That's phase 1. There's a parking or a sidewalk connection that leads to where everybody cuts down the dirt pathway, which we're going to make stairs. And then it'll be one of the first ADA accessible boat launches of its size in the area. But it's also tricky because it's at the confluence of Tualatin, so it's taken a lot of design. But now that this 30% is done, we have Metro local share dollars. We have $1.4 million of that, as well as our SDC funds that will be able to help support that, and potentially Marine Board grants. The previous director had thought we might be able to get $300,000 for the build out of it. So that's going to be coming up in this next 2 years to get the launching of it to move forward. So, yeah.
Council President Baumgartner.
Thank you. I'm so excited about that. And I just had a suggestion that we name it to the Tualamet boat launch.
I like that. Well, the part that's going to be fun about this is some of the requirements from the Metro local share is some really kind of robust outreach that didn't happen in the initial phase. So I'm really excited to be able to get that input like that, and just also to hear what the community is thinking about this. So it'll be a good project as we move forward. Yeah.
Thank you. I just noticed actually that I'm really reading this list carefully, that there are a bunch of funded capital improvements that are being funded by grants, and that is totally awesome.
Hope to have more.
You'd definitely be commended, having written grant proposals myself. It is not easy, and
Yeah.
whatever the source happens to be.
Well, and one thing with this is a precursor of where we put in what we're anticipating to get. So don't sing my praises just yet. We don't have them acquired yet, but that's where we're looking at for the 6-year budget, because we have to be able to have a zero balance that,
Okay, so are these
these are
grants
projected,
projected, they're not secured yet?
not secured yet.
Okay.
Yes.
So, because
But maybe in 2 years, we can talk about it again. No, they are not. It took me a while until I got here to understand that too. That's how we get to our equal balance budget.
Okay. So
Proposed.
I'm saying, okay, good, Deb.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, pull back a little, pull back a little. Yeah. Oh, but like the EV charger is actually fully funded. That is one that is funded. Well, we can think about, that would be something for next year to do on a budget. Yeah.
And basically with that, it has the offsetting revenue in the budget. And if we don't get that revenue, then we don't do the project. So.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. I'll next time we meet, I'll have it there for you.
All right, again, thank you very much. I think we are ready to move on. So the next thing is our public hearing on state revenue sharing. First, Lauren would be discussing the state revenue sharing and the planned use of that money.
Thank you. So every year we get state revenue sharing. Historically, it's been placed into the planning fund. It's going now into the general fund, since the planning fund is in the general fund now. And we are estimating about 320,000 a year. So 640,000 for the biennium, and it will just go to general expenses. Happy to answer any questions about that.
Are there questions, comments about the state revenue sharing from the committee?
Just a quick one. Does it tend to go into one particular area, or is it just sort of sprinkled all over the place? I know it's a very good financial word, sprinkled.
It's kind of like property taxes. It's kind of just, it's a general fund revenue that can be used for whatever. So it's one big pot of money and it goes wherever.
Okay, thanks.
So I am now going to open the public hearing and take testimony concerning the state revenue sharing and projected uses. Dylan, do we have any testimony?
There is none.
We do not. Are there any further comments from the committee? Hearing none, I hereby close the public hearing on state revenue sharing. Public review and discussion of the 6-year capital improvement plan will now open. Do we need to vote on that?
that the council does on the resolution, we can, let's vote on it just so that we make sure that it's A-okay. I don't believe we do, but I don't believe we do. I think it's just at the council level in June, but let's do it just in case. So I'll call roll if that's.
Do I hear a motion? No,
Do that.
no. Do I hear a motion?
I move to accept the state revenue sharing.
Is there a second? Could you please call, is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Okay. Nikki Koblaha.
Yes.
Leo Groner.
Yes.
Mary Baumgartner.
Yes.
Rory B. Listowski.
Yes.
Ann Fraser.
Yes.
Carol Brake.
Yes.
Richard Larson.
Yes.
Kevin Bonington.
Yes.
Brian Beadle.
Yes.
Abby Farber.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We will now open the public hearing and take testimony concerning the 6-year capital improvement plan. Dylan, do we have anyone signed up to testify?
No, we do not.
Okay, is there any questions or discussions, further discussion by the committee? I hereby close the public hearing on the 6-year capital improvement plan. Would you like a vote to approve it?
Yeah, there's a motion actually down at the bottom, the CIP one, the last
Okay, on the
one.
very bottom of the page.
I move that the Budget Committee of the City of West Lynn approve the capital improvement plan as proposed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the capital improvement plan. Is there discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Start the other way. Abby Farber.
Yes.
Brian Beadle.
Yes.
Kevin Bonington.
Yes.
Richard Larson.
Yes.
Carol Brake.
Yes.
Ann Fraser.
Yes.
Rory B. Listowski.
Yes.
Mary Baumgartner.
Yes.
Leo Groner.
Yes.
Nikki Koblaha.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then the next item is we can approve the budget or we can schedule another meeting. So if somebody would like to make a motion, I would be willing to entertain a motion to approve the budget. And I have one here too, if anybody, oh, you have to change it. Thank you.
I can make it, or you go ahead. Nikki, would you like to? Go ahead.
All right, so I move that the Budget Committee of the City of West Lynn approve the biennium budget for the period beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2027 in the amount of $194,078,000. Changes to the proposed budget are as follows. So increase the non-department materials and services for $70,000 for the chamber, $60,000 for Main Street by biennium for $130,000 total. Decrease the general fund contingency for $60,000 for the biennium. Decrease, thank you, city manager, $10,000 for the biennium. Planning, also decrease planning, $20,000 for the biennium. Decrease IT, $30,000 for the biennium. Decrease HR, $10,000 for the biennium for a total of $70,000.
Second.
Second. Nikki Koblaha.
Yes.
Leo Groner.
Yes.
Mary Baumgartner.
Yes.
Rory B. Listowski.
Yes.
Ann Fraser.
Yes.
Carol Brake.
Yes.
Richard Larson.
Yes.
Kevin Bonington.
Yes.
Brian Beadle.
Yes.
Abby Farber.
Yes.
Okay, we have approved the budget. The next item is to approve the tax levy. And we have a motion for that if someone would like it. Councillor Bonington. This one right here.
I move that the Budget Committee of the City of West Lynn approve, that one, not that one.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. I move that the Budget Committee of the City of West Lynn approve property taxes for the 2025-26 fiscal year at the rate of $2.12 per thousand of assessed value for the permanent tax levy rate, And in the amount of $1,851,000 for the general obligation bond levy, and approve property taxes for the 2026-27 fiscal year rate of $2.12 per thousand of assessed value for the permanent tax levy rate, and in the amount of $1,862,000 for the general obligation bond levy.
It's been moved to levy the taxes. Is there a second?
Second.
Committee member Farber has seconded, as well as Councilor Groner. Is there any discussion? If not.
Yeah, are these numbers written down somewhere where I can peruse them?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Are these numbers written down? Oh, thank you.
Yes.
And those are the numbers. The permanent rate is our permanent rate for the city. It doesn't change. It stays the same, the $2.12. Was set back in the 90s. And then the general obligation bond levy is the amount that we're levying in order to pay our general obligation debt.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Abby Farber,
Yes.
Brian Beadle,
Yes.
Kevin Bonington,
Yes.
Richard Larson,
Yes.
Carol Bright,
Yes.
Ann Fraser,
Yes.
Rory Bielostowski.
Yes.
Mary Baumgartner,
Yes.
Leo Groner,
Yes.
Nikki Koblaha.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So we have approved the budget. We have approved the tax levy. Is there any further business before the budget committee?
Just one quick thing. I'm sorry, everybody, for the hour, but I wanted to recognize Ann Fraser. She'd informed me that she thinks this will be her last budget with the city. How many, but she recognized, she knew Jody Carson because she's been on since Councilor Carson was on the city council. How many budgets have you done with the city?
7.
7? 6 or 7. So I just wanted to thank Ann for her dedicated service over the years to the city, if this does end up being your final budget.
Thank you. It's very appreciated.
Thank you, Anne. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, so the master fees and charges is in there just because that's what I use to balance the budget, but the council will approve that in June.
Councilor Bright?
I just want to say thanks to all of the staff that I know had a lot of effort and work in putting this together, and Lauren and your staff especially for
Thank you.
putting this great book together.
And thank you all for your hard work. I know it's a lot to go over and it's a large document for you to read. And I had lots of great questions, and I really appreciate your detailed review and some catches on little errors. And I really appreciate all that you have done to make this process smooth and great. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
I
Yes, Ms.
just
Farber.
wanted to give a shout out again to John, Lauren, their staff, the staff of the city council. You know, I've been in Westland now for 10 years, and I'm just impressed with everybody on this committee. Such, you know, everyone acting intelligently, acting well together. I've especially noticed that with the city council. You know, I'm proud of the people we have running the city, providing volunteer service as, well, not entirely volunteer, as counselors, and being paid a little better now. But it's a pleasure devoting the time to this process and seeing our leaders being so smart about it too.
Thank you to all the budget committee volunteers, and Chair Larson. Thank
Yes,
you very
thank
much
you
as well.
for
Thank you
sharing
all.
it.
Oh,
Yes, thank you. You did a fantastic job. I do want to say that we will not be having the meeting on Monday, June 2nd at 1 p.m. However, the city budget committee citizen members, not the council, will be meeting at, I believe, 3 o'clock that day to go over the community grants. And we will send out the invitation for that and everything on Monday. And I think the council actually has a meeting at the same time. So they don't get out of their meeting. So I'm sorry about that.
okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you to all the committee members. I appreciate working with you very much. Meeting adjourned.